My name is Daniel Richardson. I just turned 21, and I thought becoming an adult meant having your family support you through the worst moments of your life. Instead, it meant discovering that my family cared more about appearances and celebrations than about my grief, and that the day I buried the love of my life alone would be the last day they would ever see me. This is the story of how my sister called my girlfriend's funeral a minor event, how my parents chose a housewarming party over supporting their grieving son, and how by the time they realized their mistake, I had already disappeared from their lives forever. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late October. I was sitting in my apartment near Stanford University, staring at my phone, trying to make sense of a text message I had just received. The message was from my sister Ashley, posted in our family group chat, and it felt like a knife twisting in a wound that was still raw and bleeding. Ashley, super excited to announce my housewarming party, is officially scheduled for Saturday, November 2nd. Everyone is invited. Cannot wait to show off the new place. See you all there. November 2nd. This Saturday, the same day as Emma's funeral. I stared at the message for a long time, waiting for someone to point out the problem. Waiting for my mother to comment that there was a conflict that day. Waiting for my father to suggest maybe Ashley should pick a different date. Waiting for anyone in my family to remember that this Saturday I would be burying my girlfriend of 4 years, the woman I had planned to marry, the person who had been the center of my world since we were 17 years old. But no one said anything. The responses started coming in. Congratulations from my aunt. Excited emojis from my cousin. My grandmother asking what she should bring. Everyone was celebrating Ashley's new house, her exciting milestone, her fresh start. And no one seemed to remember or care that I would be at a cemetery that day, saying goodbye to Emma forever. My hands were shaking as I typed my response. Ashley, that is the day of Emma's funeral. Can you please choose a different date? The 3 dots appeared immediately, showing she was typing. Then her response came through. Ashley, oh right. Well, it is just a minor event. You can come to the party after. The funeral will not take all day. A minor event. She called Emma's funeral a minor event. The funeral of my girlfriend who had died just 5 days ago. The funeral where I would have to watch them lower into the ground the only person I had ever truly loved. The funeral that was destroying me from the inside out. A minor event. I could not breathe, could not think, could not process that my own sister had just said that. Before I could respond, before I could find words to express the rage and hurt and disbelief coursing through me, my mother chimed in. Mom, Ashley is right, honey. The funeral is in the morning. You will have plenty of time to come to the party in the afternoon. Your sister has been planning this for weeks. It is a big day for her. My father's message came next. We all loved Emma, but life goes on, son. Your sister needs our support too. Try to make it to the party if you can. I sat there staring at my phone screen, reading and rereading those messages, trying to understand how my family could be so cruel, how they could look at the worst week of my entire life and decide that my sister's housewarming party was more important than supporting me through it, how they could call Emma's funeral a minor event and expect me to show up and celebrate afterward like everything was fine. Let me back up. Let me tell you about Emma, about how she died, about the 5 days between her death and that text message, and about how my family had already shown me exactly who they were before Ashley scheduled her party on the worst day of my life. I met Emma when we were both 17, juniors in high school. She sat behind me in AP Chemistry and spent the first week correcting my lab technique in the nicest possible way. She was brilliant and kind and funny, with a smile that could light up any room she walked into. We started dating 2 months after we met, and I knew almost immediately that she was it for me, the person I wanted to build a life with, the person I wanted to grow old with. We went to Stanford together. She was studying biology, planning to become a doctor. I was studying computer science. We had an apartment together off campus, a small place we had filled with second-hand furniture and big dreams. We talked about getting married after graduation, about moving somewhere beautiful, maybe Seattle or Portland, about building careers we cared about, and a family we would love, about everything we wanted our life to be. On October 26th, Emma was driving home from her volunteer shift at a free clinic. It was raining. A drunk driver ran a red light and hit her car head-on. She died at the scene. The police officer who came to tell me said she probably did not feel any pain, that it happened too fast. I do not know if that is true or if he just said it to make me feel better. Either way, she was gone, 21 years old, with her whole life ahead of her, and she was just gone. The first people I called were my parents. I was sobbing so hard I could barely get the words out. I told them Emma was dead, that there had been an accident, that I did not know what to do. I needed them. I needed my family. I needed someone to tell me how to survive this. My mother's first question was, "Are you okay? Were you in the car?" No, I was not in the car. "I am home. Mom, Emma is dead. I do not know what to do. Can you come here? Can someone please come here?" There was a pause. Then, "Honey, we are in the middle of dinner. Let me talk to your father, and we will call you back in a bit. Okay? Try to calm down." She hung up. They did not call me back for 3 hours. When they finally did, it was a brief conversation where my father told me to contact Emma's parents about funeral arrangements and to let them know when everything was scheduled. No offer to come stay with me. No offer to help with anything. Just practical advice delivered in a tone that suggested I was overreacting to a manageable situation. My sister Ashley called the next day. "Hey, I heard about Emma. That is really sad. Listen, I am closing on my house next week, and I am going to throw a huge housewarming party. You will come, right? It will be good for you to get out and celebrate something happy. Ashley, I do not even know when the funeral is yet. I do not know what I am doing tomorrow, let alone next week." "Okay. Well, just let me know when you know. The party is going to be amazing. I am so excited." That was the extent of my family's support. A 3-hour delayed callback, and a sister excited about her party. No one drove the hour and a half to come be with me. No one offered to help with arrangements. No one checked in to see if I was eating or sleeping or managing to function at all. They just expected me to handle it on my own because I was 21 and therefore an adult who should be capable of dealing with devastating loss without any support. Emma's parents were the opposite. They came to Stanford immediately. They held me while I cried. They helped me contact the funeral home and make arrangements. They made sure I ate. They sat with me when the grief felt like it was going to drown me. They treated me like family, like someone worth caring for, in a way my own family never had. We planned the funeral for Saturday, November 2nd. It was the soonest we could schedule it, given all the arrangements that needed to be made. Emma's mother asked me if my family would be coming. I told her yes. Of course they would be there. I believed that. However distant my family had been in the days immediately following Emma's death, they would show up for the funeral. They had to. No one would miss the funeral of their son's girlfriend. No one would be that cruel. But then came Ashley's text message. The housewarming party scheduled for the exact same day. And when I pointed out the conflict, when I asked her to change the date, she called Emma's funeral a minor event. And my parents agreed with her. I called my mother after seeing those messages. I needed to hear her explain how this was happening, how she could possibly think this was acceptable. "Mom, are you seriously choosing Ashley's party over Emma's funeral?" "Daniel, no one is choosing anything. We can support both of you. The funeral is at 10 in the morning. Ashley's party is at 2 in the afternoon. There is no conflict." There is absolutely a conflict. Do you think I am going to be done grieving by 2 in the afternoon? Do you think I am going to be ready to go celebrate a house 3 hours after I bury my girlfriend? Honey, you are being dramatic. I understand you are upset, but you cannot expect the whole world to stop because of this. Ashley has been planning this party for weeks. She cannot change the date now. All the invitations are out. Everyone has made plans. And I have made plans to bury the love of my life. But apparently that is less important than Ashley showing off her new kitchen. That is not fair. We all loved Emma. We are all sad about what happened. But Daniel, you are young. You will meet someone else. You will move on. Ashley only gets to have one first housewarming party for her first house. This is a milestone for her. I hung up. I could not listen to any more. I could not hear my mother tell me that Emma's death was something I would get over, that finding someone else was just around the corner, that my sister's party was more important than my grief. I called my father next. Same conversation, different words. He told me I was being selfish, that I was making Emma's death all about me, that I needed to think about my sister's feelings and her special day, that attending the party would be good for me, would help me get out of my own head and focus on something positive. You are not coming to the funeral, I said. It was not a question. We will try to make the funeral, son. But we are not making any promises. Ashley needs us there for her party. That is our priority. Our priority, not me. Not supporting their grieving son. Not showing up for one of the worst days of my life. Their priority was a housewarming party. I hung up on him too. And then I blocked all of them. Ashley, Mom, Dad, everyone who had been in that group chat watching my sister call Emma's funeral a minor event and saying nothing to defend me. I blocked their numbers, blocked them on social media, blocked every possible way they had to contact me. I was done, completely done. The days leading up to the funeral were a blur of grief and logistics and trying to function when everything inside me wanted to shut down. Emma's parents checked in on me multiple times a day. Emma's best friend, Sarah, moved into my apartment temporarily to make sure I was not alone. My roommate from freshman year flew in from Seattle. Emma's brother, who I had always gotten along with, came early to help with last-minute arrangements. People who cared about Emma, who cared about me, who understood that this was not a minor event. They all showed up. They all made time. They all put my grief above their own convenience. My family did not. The morning of the funeral, I checked my phone one last time before blocking everyone permanently. There were no messages from my parents or Ashley saying they had changed their minds. No apologies. No acknowledgement that they had made a terrible choice. Just silence. The funeral was beautiful and devastating. The church was full of people who had loved Emma. Her former teachers, her friends from high school and college, her coworkers from the clinic, distant relatives who had driven hours to be there. Emma's father gave a eulogy that made everyone cry. Emma's mother held my hand through the entire service, and I sat there in the front row, surrounded by people who understood that this was a major event, possibly the most major event of my young life, and I said goodbye to the future I had planned with Emma. My family was not there. My mother, my father, my sister, they chose a housewarming party over supporting me through the worst day of my life. They chose to celebrate new granite countertops and stainless steel appliances over saying goodbye to a young woman who had been part of our family for 4 years. They made their choice, and by making that choice, they freed me to make mine. After the funeral, Emma's parents invited me to their house. Extended family was gathering there, sharing memories of Emma, looking at photo albums, supporting each other through the grief. They wanted me there. They considered me family. So I went, and I spent the afternoon with people who actually cared about Emma and actually cared about me. I did not think about Ashley's party. I did not wonder if it was going well. I did not care. I was exactly where I needed to be, with people who had earned the right to be in my life. Late that night, back in my apartment, I made a decision. I was leaving. Not just my family, but California, Stanford, everything that reminded me of Emma, and everything that connected me to people who had proven they did not deserve a place in my life. I was going to finish the semester and then transfer somewhere far away, somewhere I could start over, somewhere no one would expect me to get over Emma by 2 in the afternoon, so I could celebrate house parties. I spent the next few weeks making arrangements. I talked to advisors about transferring. I researched programs on the East Coast. I found a position at MIT that would accept my credits and let me start fresh in January. I gave notice on the apartment Emma and I had shared. I sold or donated most of our furniture. I packed up the life we had built together and prepared to build a new one alone. I did not unblock my family. I did not reach out. I just went silent, disappeared from their lives as completely as they had disappeared from mine when I needed them most. I found out later, through a mutual friend who was still in contact with my cousin, that my family had tried to reach me. My mother had called the apartment landline that I never answered. Ashley had apparently shown up at Stanford looking for me, but could not find me because I was avoiding all the places she would think to look. My father had even contacted the university administration, trying to get them to do a welfare check, which they refused to do once they confirmed I was attending classes and functioning normally. They wanted to talk. They wanted to explain. They wanted me to understand that they had not meant to hurt me, that they thought I would be okay, that they did not realize how much their choice would impact me. According to my cousin, Ashley had expected me to show up at her party. She had saved me a seat at her table. She genuinely believed I would attend the funeral in the morning and then come celebrate with her in the afternoon. She could not comprehend that those two events were mutually exclusive, that grief does not operate on a convenient timeline. But I did not care about their explanations, or their excuses, or their belated realizations. They had shown me who they were. They had made their priorities clear, and I had made my decision based on that information. 3 weeks after the funeral, I got a letter delivered to the apartment. It was from my mother, handwritten on her good stationery, several pages long. I almost threw it away without reading it. But some part of me, some small part that still remembered being a child who loved his mother, needed to know what she had to say. The letter was full of apologies and explanations. She wrote about how she had not understood how serious my relationship with Emma was, how she thought I was too young to be that committed to anyone, how she had assumed my grief would be manageable, that I would bounce back quickly the way young people do. She wrote about how much Ashley had been looking forward to her party, how much pressure she had been under to make everything perfect. She wrote about family obligations and competing priorities, and trying to support multiple children at once. And then at the end of the letter, she wrote something that made me realize my decision to leave was the right one. We are family, Daniel. Family forgives. Family moves past these misunderstandings. We did not mean to hurt you, and we need you to let this go so we can all move forward together. Ashley is very upset that you have not responded to her apology texts. Your father feels terrible that you have blocked him. We want our son back. Please come home so we can work through this. She still did not get it. She called it a misunderstanding. She said I needed to let it go. She focused on Ashley's hurt feelings and my father's guilt, but she said nothing about my grief, my loss, my pain. She asked me to come home so we could all move forward together, but she did not acknowledge that they had left me behind when I needed them most. I wrote her back, just 1 page. I explained that this was not a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding is when you accidentally schedule a dentist appointment on the same day as a birthday party. What they did was a choice. They chose Ashley's party over Emma's funeral. They chose appearances over authenticity. They chose a minor event over what they should have recognized as a major event. And they made that choice knowing exactly what they were doing. I told her I was leaving California, that I had transferred to a school on the East Coast, that I would not be coming home for Thanksgiving or Christmas or any other holiday, that I did not want phone calls or letters or visits, that I needed to build a life separate from people who had hurt me so profoundly. And I told her that forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation, that I might forgive them someday for not understanding the depth of my grief, but I would never forget that when I needed them most, they were not there, and I would never put myself in a position to need them again. I mailed the letter and left for MIT 2 weeks later. I did not tell anyone in my family where I was going. I just disappeared, changed my phone number, closed my social media accounts, became someone they could not find even if they tried. The first few months in Cambridge were brutal. I was grieving Emma, grieving the future we would never have, grieving the family I thought I had but apparently never did. I was alone in a new city where winter hit hard and early, where I knew no one, where every day felt like survival rather than living. But slowly, gradually, I started to rebuild. I threw myself into my studies. I joined a grief support group for young adults who had lost partners. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in complex grief and family trauma. I made new friends who knew me as Daniel, the MIT student, not Daniel, the guy whose girlfriend died, not Daniel whose family abandoned him. And I learned something important. You can survive anything if you give yourself permission to actually grieve, to actually feel, to actually process the pain instead of pushing through it because someone else needs you to get over it by 2 in the afternoon. The grief support group saved me. There were 8 of us, all in our 20s, all navigating the impossible task of building lives after losing the people we loved. Some had lost spouses. Some had lost partners they were about to marry. One woman had lost her girlfriend of 6 years. One man had lost his husband in a climbing accident. We were all too young for this kind of loss, and we were all learning to survive it anyway. They understood what my family never did. That grief is not something you get over. It is something you learn to carry. That there is no timeline, no acceptable mourning period, no point at which you should be ready to move on and celebrate house parties. That love does not end just because the person you love is gone. One of the guys in the group, Marcus, had a similar story to mine. His fiancée had died of an aggressive cancer, and his family had been dismissive of his grief because they had never liked her. They told him he should be relieved, that he was too young to be tied down anyway, that he would find someone better. When he tried to talk about missing her, they told him he needed to move on. Eventually, he stopped talking to them entirely. "Do you regret cutting them off?" I asked him during one session. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Family is supposed to be there for you, you know? It is supposed to be unconditional. And when it is not, when they fail you at the worst possible moment, it feels like losing twice. Once when you lose your person, and again when you lose your family. So why stay away? Because being around people who minimize your pain is worse than being alone. Because every time they told me to move on, it felt like they were erasing Sarah, like they were saying she did not matter enough to grieve. And I would rather have no family than have a family that makes me feel like my grief is inconvenient. I understood that completely. That was exactly how my family had made me feel. Like Emma's death was an inconvenience, a minor event that I should process quickly so I could get back to being a functional member of the family who showed up for house parties. My first year at MIT passed. Then my second. I excelled academically, graduated with honors, got accepted into a prestigious graduate program. I built a life that Emma would have been proud of, a life that honored her memory by refusing to minimize it, by refusing to pretend she had been anything less than the center of my world. I met new people, dated occasionally, though it was hard. No one was Emma, and I was not sure anyone ever would be. But I learned to be open to connection again, to imagine a future that might include love, even though it would never include the specific love I had lost. And I stayed away from my family. Completely, totally away. I did not contact them. I did not check their social media through friends' accounts. I did not ask mutual acquaintances for updates. I just let them exist in their world while I existed in mine. Two separate spheres that no longer overlapped. Then, 3 years after Emma's funeral, I got a notification on LinkedIn. My sister Ashley had viewed my profile, which meant she had found me, which meant my carefully constructed separation was about to be challenged. The message came 2 days later, not through LinkedIn, but through my MIT email address, which must have been listed somewhere she could find it. Daniel, it is Ashley. I know you do not want to hear from me. I know you are still angry about what happened with Emma, but it has been 3 years. Mom is sick, really sick. Cancer. She is asking for you. She wants to see you before it is too late. Please, whatever you think of me, Mom does not deserve to die without seeing her son one more time. Please come home. I stared at that email for a long time. 3 years of silence, broken with news that my mother was dying. 3 years of building a life without them. And now they wanted me back because it was convenient for them, because they needed something from me. My first instinct was to delete the email and go back to my life. They had not been there when I needed them. Why should I be there when they needed me? But then I thought about Emma, about what she would have said if she could see me now. Emma had believed in forgiveness, in second chances, in the importance of family, even when family was complicated. And I thought about my mother, who had made terrible choices, but was still my mother, who was dying and wanted to see her son. I replied, I will come, but not for Ashley, not for Dad, for Mom, and only if she actually wants to see me, not if this is you manipulating me into coming home. Ashley responded immediately. She really does want to see you. She talks about you all the time. Please come soon. The doctors say she does not have long. I flew back to California 2 days later. 3 years after I had left, I returned to the place where I had lost everything that mattered. Ashley picked me up from the airport. The drive to the hospital was awkward and tense. She tried to make small talk. I gave one-word answers. Finally, she said, I am sorry. About Emma. About the party. About all of it. I was young and stupid, and I did not understand what I was asking you to do. You were 25, I said. That is old enough to understand that you do not schedule parties on the same day as funerals. I know. You are right. I have thought about it every day for 3 years. I have wanted to apologize, to explain, but you disappeared and I did not know how to reach you. You did not try very hard. A simple Google search would have found my LinkedIn profile years ago. She did not have a response to that. We drove the rest of the way in silence. My mother looked small in the hospital bed. She had always been a large presence, commanding and sure of herself, but cancer had shrunk her down to something fragile and breakable. When she saw me walk into the room, she started crying. Daniel, you came. I did not think you would come. I sat down next to her bed. Ashley said you wanted to see me. I did. I do. I have so many things I need to say to you. Then say them. She took a shaky breath. I am sorry for not being there when Emma died, for choosing Ashley's party over your grief, for not understanding how much you were hurting, for asking you to let it go instead of acknowledging how badly we failed you. I have had 3 years to think about what we did, and I have had therapy and soul searching and a cancer diagnosis that puts everything in perspective. And Daniel, I am so sorry. You needed us, and we were not there. That is unforgivable. You are right. It is unforgivable. But I am here anyway. She reached for my hand. I let her take it. Thank you for coming. Even after everything. Thank you for being here. We talked for an hour. She told me about her diagnosis, about the treatments that had not worked, about accepting that she was dying. She asked me about MIT, about my life, about whether I was happy. I told her about my degree, my work, my apartment in Cambridge. I did not tell her about the grief support group, or the therapy, or the years it took to rebuild myself after she and Dad and Ashley had abandoned me when I needed them most. Before I left, she said, I know I do not deserve to ask this, but will you come back? Will you let us be part of your life again? I do not know, Mom. I am here because you are dying, but that does not mean everything is fixed. That does not mean I trust any of you. You showed me who you were 3 years ago. I have not forgotten that. I understand. But Daniel, please think about it. Family is important. Life is short. I do not want you to wake up someday and regret that you stayed away. I did not tell her that I already had regrets, that I regretted giving them chances before Emma died, that I regretted believing they would be there when I needed them, that I regretted not walking away sooner. My mother died 2 weeks later. I flew back for the funeral, the same church where we had held Emma's funeral 3 years earlier. The symmetry was not lost on me. I sat in the back, not with family, just observing. My father gave the eulogy. Ashley sobbed through the whole service. They both looked at me like they were hoping I would come sit with them, provide comfort, be the son and brother they needed. I did not. I stayed in the back. I showed up, which was more than they had done for me. But I did not pretend we were a family again. I did not offer comfort they had not earned. I just witnessed their grief the way they should have witnessed mine. After the funeral, my father approached me. Daniel, can we talk? There is nothing to talk about, Dad. Your mother wanted us to reconcile. She wanted us to be a family again. Mom wanted a lot of things. She wanted me to get over Emma by 2 in the afternoon so I could celebrate a house party. She wanted me to forgive and forget without anyone actually changing. She wanted absolution without accountability. And you know what? I showed up for her funeral. That is more than you did for me. That is not fair. No, what is not fair is expecting your grieving son to put aside his pain to celebrate granite countertops. What is not fair is calling your son's girlfriend's funeral a minor event. What is not fair is making me feel like my grief was an inconvenience. You want to talk about fair, Dad? I have been thinking about fair for 3 years. I walked away, got in my rental car, drove back to the airport, flew back to Cambridge, and the life I had built without them. I had done my duty. I had shown up, but I had not forgiven, and I had not forgotten. Ashley tried one more time a month after Mom's funeral. She sent a long email about wanting to rebuild our relationship, about how Mom's death had made her realize how short life is, about how she had been seeing a therapist who had helped her understand how cruel she had been. I responded with one sentence. I hope therapy helps you, but it does not change what happened, and it does not obligate me to let you back into my life. She did not respond, and I went back to living my life without them. Now I am 25 years old. For years since Emma died. For years since my family chose a house party over supporting me through the worst day of my life. For years of building a new life, a better life, a life where I am surrounded by people who understand that grief is not something you get over by 2 in the afternoon. I think about Emma every day. I think about the life we should have had together. I think about how unfair it is that a drunk driver took her from me when we were both so young, when we had so many plans. I think about the future I lost the day she died. But I also think about the family I lost, and I do not mourn them the same way I mourn Emma, because Emma was taken from me by tragedy. My family chose to leave me alone in my grief. Those are different kinds of loss, and they deserve different kinds of mourning. I have learned that family is not about blood. It is about showing up. It is about being there when someone needs you, not just when it is convenient. It is about understanding that some things, like grief, like loss, like burying someone you love, are major events that deserve respect and support. My family failed that test. They had one chance to show me they valued me, that my pain mattered to them, that they would prioritize my needs over their conveniences. And they failed. Spectacularly, unforgivably, completely failed. By the time they realized their mistake, by the time they understood that I was not going to just get over it and come back, by the time they tried to apologize and rebuild, it was already too late. I had already moved across the country. I had already built a new life. I had already learned to live without them. And I had learned that I was better off that way. That is the part they never understood. They thought I stayed away to punish them. They thought I was being stubborn or holding a grudge. But I stayed away because being around them hurt. Because every time I saw them, I remembered the day they chose a housewarming party over supporting me through the worst loss of my life. Because I could not trust them anymore. And life is too short to spend it with people you cannot trust. I have built something good here in Cambridge. I finished my master's degree in computer science. I work for a tech company that does meaningful work. I have friends who have become like family. I volunteer at a grief support center, helping other young people navigate loss. I have even started dating again, carefully, slowly, with someone who understands that Emma will always be part of my story, even though she is not part of my present. And I do not need my biological family. I do not need Ashley's belated apologies. I do not need my father's guilt-driven attempts at reconciliation. I do not need what my mother wanted in her final weeks. Absolution for choices that caused irreparable damage. I had one family, the family I chose with Emma. We were going to build a life together, have children together, grow old together. That family died with her. And the family I was born in to prove they were not family at all when they failed to show up on the day I needed them most. So I built a new family, a chosen family, people who show up, people who understand that grief does not have a timeline, people who would never, ever call someone's funeral a minor event. Last week, I got another email from Ashley. This one was different. She was getting divorced. Her perfect house, with the granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, she was losing it in the divorce settlement. She was moving back in with Dad, and she wanted to know if we could talk, if I could offer her advice, if I could help her through this difficult time. I read the email twice. Then I deleted it, not out of cruelty or revenge, but because I had nothing to offer her. I am not part of her life. She made that choice when she scheduled her party on the day of Emma's funeral, and I honored that choice by building a life without her. Emma's parents still call me every few months. We have dinner when I am in California for work. They tell me about Emma's younger sister who is in medical school now, following in the footsteps Emma never got to walk. They show me photos and share memories. They treat me like I am still part of their family, even though Emma is gone. That is what family looks like, not blood relatives who only show up when it is convenient, but people who choose to stay in your life even when it is hard, even when there is no obligation, even when the person who connected you is gone. I keep a photo of Emma on my desk at work. It is from our last vacation together, a weekend trip to Big Sur 2 months before she died. She is standing on a cliff overlooking the ocean, her hair blowing in the wind, smiling that smile that made me fall in love with her. She looks happy. She looks alive. She looks like she had no idea that in 2 months, everything would be over. Sometimes colleagues ask about the photo. I tell them she was my girlfriend, that she died. Most people do not know what to say after that, so they offer awkward condolences and change the subject. But occasionally, someone understands, someone who has lost someone too, and they do not try to minimize it or rush past it. They just acknowledge that loss is loss, that grief is grief, that some things change you forever. Those are the people I let into my life now. The ones who understand that Emma's death was not a minor event, that it was not something I got over, that it fundamentally changed who I am and how I move through the world. The ones who do not expect me to be the person I was before, because that person died with Emma on a rainy October night when a drunk driver ran a red light. I have learned to carry the grief. It is not as heavy as it used to be. Some days I barely notice it. Other days it hits me out of nowhere. A song on the radio, a smell that reminds me of her perfume, a couple holding hands on the street. But I have learned that grief and joy can coexist, that you can miss someone desperately and still find moments of happiness, that honoring the dead does not mean refusing to live. My family never learned that lesson. They thought moving on meant forgetting. They thought supporting me meant rushing me through my grief so everything could go back to normal. They thought a house party was more important than a funeral because one was about celebrating the future and one was about mourning the past. But grief is not about the past. It is about learning to live with loss. It is about building a future that includes the absence of someone who should have been there. It is about finding meaning in a world that suddenly makes no sense. And you cannot do that in 3 hours. You cannot do that between a morning funeral and an afternoon party. You cannot do that on someone else's timeline. I am 25 years old, and I understand things about loss and grief and family that I should not have to understand for decades. I understand that the people who are supposed to love you the most can hurt you the deepest. I understand that blood does not guarantee loyalty or compassion or support. I understand that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who are toxic, even when those people are your family. And I understand that Emma would be proud of me for surviving, for building a life that matters, for not letting her death be defined by the cruelty of people who should have been there for me, for honoring her memory by refusing to minimize our love or our loss. There is a grief support group I facilitate now for young adults who have lost partners. I tell them my story about Emma, about the funeral, about my family's choice, about rebuilding. And I tell them that the grief does not go away, but it changes, that the pain does not disappear, but it becomes bearable, that they will survive this, even when survival seems impossible. Last month, a 22-year-old woman came to the group for the first time. Her fiance had died in a motorcycle accident 3 weeks earlier. She was barely holding it together, and she told us that her family had been pressuring her to move on, to start dating again, to not waste her youth mourning someone who was gone. They told her the funeral was closure, that she needed to turn the page, that dwelling on death was unhealthy. I recognized the pain in her eyes, the isolation, the feeling that no one understood, the desperate need for someone to tell her that what she was feeling was normal, that her grief was valid, that she was not crazy for wanting to mourn the person she loved. I told her about Emma, about the funeral, about my family, and I told her that she got to decide how long to grieve, not anyone else, that her fiancé's death was not a minor event, no matter what anyone said, that she deserved support, not pressure, that she deserved to be surrounded by people who understood that love does not end just because life does. She started crying. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for understanding. Everyone keeps telling me to be strong, to move forward, to focus on the future. But I do not want a future without him. I want the future we planned together." "I know," I said, "and that future is gone, and that is devastating. And you get to be devastated for as long as you need to be. You do not owe anyone a performance of being okay. That is what I do now. I give people permission to not be okay. I validate grief that others try to minimize. I create space for pain that the world wants to rush past. Because I know what it is like to have your grief treated as an inconvenience. And I know how much it matters to have even one person say, "Your pain is real. Your loss is significant. You are not alone." I will never have a relationship with my father or my sister again. That door is closed, locked, and the key is thrown away. They had their chance. They made their choice. And I made mine. I chose myself. I chose my grief. I chose to honor Emma by refusing to pretend her death was something I should just get over. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if they had made a different choice that day. If Ashley had changed the date of her party, if my parents had shown up at the funeral, if they had supported me through the worst week of my life, instead of expecting me to support Ashley through her housewarming. Maybe I would still be in California. Maybe I would have stayed connected to them. Maybe we would have rebuilt our relationship and moved forward as a family. Maybe everything would have been different. But they did not make a different choice. They chose a house party over a funeral. They chose granite countertops over grief. They chose appearances over authenticity. And that choice revealed something fundamental about who they were and what they valued. It revealed that I could not count on them when it mattered most. And that revelation, painful as it was, freed me. It freed me to build a life based on what I valued instead of trying to meet their expectations. It freed me to choose people who would actually show up instead of hoping my family would change. It freed me to grieve Emma fully, without worrying about whether I was making other people uncomfortable with my pain. By the time they realized their mistake, I was gone. By the time they understood that calling a funeral a minor event was unforgivable, I had already unforgivably removed myself from their lives. By the time they wanted to apologize and rebuild, I had already built something better without them. It was already too late, and I was already free. For years later, I can say with certainty that I made the right choice. Walking away from my family was one of the hardest things I have ever done. But staying would have been harder. Pretending to forgive them would have been harder. Watching them treat my grief as an inconvenience while expecting me to show up for their celebrations would have been harder. I chose the hard thing that led to healing. They chose the easy thing that led to permanent estrangement. And we both have to live with those choices. Emma has been gone for 4 years. Some days it feels like yesterday. Other days it feels like a lifetime ago. But she is still with me, in the way I move through the world, in the choices I make, in the person I have become. She taught me what love looks like, and my family taught me what love does not look like. Love shows up. Love prioritizes. Love supports. Love understands that some events are too significant to be called minor. Love knows that grief cannot be scheduled around parties. Love does not abandon you when you need it most. My family did not love me the way I needed to be loved. But Emma did. Emma's parents did. My chosen family does. And that is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. I am 25 years old. I have survived the death of my girlfriend. I have survived the abandonment of my family. I have survived grief that felt like it would kill me. And I am building a life that honors the love I lost while making space for the love I might find. Emma would be proud of me, not because I walked away from my family. She would have tried to fix that, would have believed in forgiveness and second chances. But because I survived, because I did not let their cruelty destroy me, because I built something meaningful from the wreckage of the worst year of my life. And that is enough. I am enough. The life I have built is enough. The chosen family I have found is enough. The grief I carry, and the joy I occasionally feel, and the memories I hold of a love that ended too soon, all of it is enough. My name is Daniel Richardson. I am 25 years old. 4 years ago, my sister called my girlfriend's funeral a minor event and scheduled her housewarming party for the same day. My parents defended her and chose to attend her party instead of supporting me at the funeral. I sat alone at the church, surrounded by Emma's family and friends, but missing my own, and something inside me broke that has never fully healed. By the time my family realized their mistake, by the time they understood what they had done, by the time they tried to apologize and make amends, it was already too late. I had already left California. I had already built a new life. I had already learned that I was better off without them. And 4 years later, I can say with absolute certainty, I still am. Thank you for listening to my story of growing up faster than I ever wanted to. I have left 2 more stories on your screen, both from young men who learned that sometimes becoming an adult does not happen at 18. It happens the moment your family needs you to be strong. Click on whichever one speaks to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it is like to be forced to grow up overnight, that notification bell is waiting. Until tomorrow, remember, age is just a number, but courage defines who you really are.